Hi, Jim Laird here from Jim Laird Strength and Conditioning. Never tried this before. I don't know how good the sound is because I'm outside. It is a little breezy. I would usually do this in the back of the gym, but the dogs are back there and they get a little excited when I'm back there, so it would be a constant barking extravaganza. It's a beautiful day here in Lexington. Got the day off. It's Labor Day. And just doing some odds and ends around the gym before I go out and get on a motorcycle and cruise around a little bit. But Brandy asked a question, and Brandy said that despite, going to different classes and changing her music and trying different supplements and energy drinks, she can't seem to get motivated. And this is something that I see pretty common with people that come in and do orientations with me, or people that I've worked with in the past, or even myself. Your body is super, super smart. And if you're having motivation issues, I always like using the car analogy. So if you get in your car and you start it up and your engine is knocking, or your tires are, half deflated, is trying to drive it harder or putting a supercharger on it. A supercharger is something that basically boosts your horsepower, and it's essentially, I would compare it to like an energy drink. It's something that boosts your power, and it definitely works, like no doubt. But putting a supercharger on an engine that's not good is not a good long-term strategy. So, Brandy, I would ask you, what environment are you spending the majority of your time in? Or do you work inside all day? Do you stare at a screen all day? It's been interesting since I've started to do more social media stuff, and I've had to sit down and work on the computer a little bit more than I'm used to. My job, I'm moving around constantly. I've noticed that I don't feel as well, and I have to take breaks to get outside and to move around in order to make me feel better. So I couldn't imagine if you sat all day in an office staring at a screen, how terrible you would feel. The body's really smart, and if you're not in a good place and you're not healthy, a lot of times the body will basically down regulate to kind of make you do what it wants you to do. And a lot of times you need to do what we call working in so you can work out. There's nothing wrong with hard training, but if you're not in a good place, pushing through that constantly. Now, there's certain situations, if you're a professional athlete or if you're in the military, where you're going to have to drive through things. But for the most part, you want to get your car in good shape. So you want to make sure your car has air in the tires, the transmission works, the engine's in good shape. And most people don't really put that much effort. Most people are working all the time. They got kids. They don't do enough low-level activity to build their work capacity to handle hard training. So if you think about it like a car, it's a much easier analogy. You wouldn't take a car that's broken, that has bad brakes and a bad engine, and drive it harder to fix it. You fix the car. If you look at like top fuel dragsters, those are the cars you see that run really fast in a straight line, quarter mile type stuff. They rebuild those engines like every race, depending on how much horsepower they have, but those engines are constantly being rebuilt. So you got to think about it that way with your body. Your body a lot of times is telling you what it needs, and a lot of times if you're dragging, I know I was addicted to energy drinks and ephedra and caffeine, and I was using that stuff just to work, and basically you're just borrowing energy from the future and basically giving your body a huge stress response. And if you look at the Robert Sapolsky lecture I shared, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, when you're giving your body a constant stress response, which is great for getting away from a bear or killing your food, your body starts like putting digestion and putting reproduction and all these other things on the back shelf, because if you're basically struggling to if your body thinks that you're basically in a life or death situation all the time, it doesn't care about reproduction. It doesn't care about rest and digestion and cognitive function. It just cares about surviving in that moment. So it was interesting. I walked into one of the local supplement stores here, and there was a girl, and she was a tiny little thing, and she had 3 cases of Bang. And I just was curious, and I said, wow, that's a lot of those. She's like, yeah, I drink 3 of them a day, and they have 300 milligrams of caffeine per can. And that's a shit ton of caffeine. And she goes, I can't function without them. I'm tired all the time. She's like, I started off, drinking one, and now I'm drinking two, and now I'm drinking three. And I I just smiled, and I the gym Laird of like 5 or 10 years ago would have lectured her, but I just asked a couple questions and she smiled and went out the door. But that is something else you want to think about too, is what kind of environment are we spending our entire day in? Like if you look at a plant, I shared a photo on Instagram on one of my blogs a few weeks ago of, if a plant isn't thriving, do you blame the plant or do you blame the environment that the plant is in? So if you have a cactus and you put it in the Arctic, is it the plant's fault that it's not doing well? Or you take a plant that usually lives in the Arctic and you put it on the equator and it doesn't do very well? Or a polar bear, if you take a polar bear and put it on the equator and it doesn't thrive, is it the polar bear's fault or is it the environment's fault? Or if you take an animal that basically lives on the equator and put it up in the Arctic, it's not going to do so much. And our lives have changed so dramatically in the last even 30 years. Especially with kids, the majority of kids today never ever go outside, and the majority of people never go outside. We spend our entire life indoors in front of a screen. I try to do all my computer work and stuff out here outside to kind of mitigate that. But if you think about how much our environment's changed in the last even 30 years, I shared another photo in a blog post of a woman dragging a kid inside with a soccer ball going away from it. It said 1970. And the other photo was a woman dragging the kid outside with a cell phone in his hand, 19 or 2000 and whatever. It said 2019 or 18. That's a big change, and that's a big difference. And so you've got to ask yourself, what kind of environment are you living in? Are you working night shift? Are you constantly indoors? Are you never getting outside? I mean, these are all basic things. Are you drinking enough water? Are you sleeping? When you're in a bad place, you need what we call more working in or more restorative type work. Tai Chi, walking outside, float tanks, not walking to burn calories, but walking for restoration, to build capacity, to get healthier. I love hard training. It's amazing, but it only makes up a fraction of your training, and most people neglect the low everyday activity that we're designed to do. If you go back 50 to 100 years, the majority of people worked outside and spent the majority of their day outside doing low-level manual labor type work. And now the majority of people are spending all day inside seated or in front of a screen, and then they try and go to a spinning class or a boot camp or something to make up for all that activity that they missed out on. And they don't, and high intensity exercise is very, very powerful. But if your body's not in a good place, you're not going to get the results from that activity that you would get normally if you're in a good place. And it looks something like this. The breakdown is approximately, I would say 50% of your activity should be 50 to 60% should be low level, walking, Tai Chi, going for an easy jog, working outside, mowing the grass, like that. That's pretty much what 60% of our activity should be. And the rest should be, another, so 50%, another 20, 25, 30% should be moderate, playing tennis for leisure, golf. Golf is probably not in the moderate, but you get what I'm saying. Easy pickup basketball, activities like that, or manual labor type work, and then the remainder, that 15 to 20% should be an ass kicking that you can adapt to. But then you've got to, once you've kicked your ass, you've got to do the work to basically repair your car. So that's kind of where it's at, and I would encourage you, instead of looking for another type of energy drink or another kind of like looking for another fix, I would start looking at, am I sleeping enough? Am I drinking enough water? Am I getting outside? Looking for things that are going to put gas in your tank, because if your gas tank is empty and you continue to try and drive that car, your body's going to make you stop, and it's not very pleasant. So I would start looking at, how's my nutrition? Looking at things to put energy into your tank instead of constantly taking from your tank. And I see Pistachio here has logged on. I hope you can hear me okay. I've never tried this before. Say something to Stash back. I don't even know how to type. There we go. But that's the main thing. The big thing is just getting you to kind of change your perspective on this. The American kind of mindset is, the harder I work, the more return I'm going to get, and that's true to a certain point. But you could buy a whole bunch of stocks, but if they're shitty stocks, it really doesn't matter if they don't pay good dividends, if they're not a good investment, if you didn't do your research. You could walk outside and take a pair of fly swatters and flap them up and down as hard as you want. It might wear you out and make you tired, but it's not going to give you the results that you want. So you want to pick activities that are going to give you what you want. And generally speaking, the formula for looking good and feeling good is, strength training 2 or 3 days a week at a moderate to higher level intensity. And then walking outside every day and being active and getting outside and getting some sunshine and drinking plenty of water. And these are all things that we need to do. Just like when you take a car to the shop, you got to get your oil changed, you check your tires, you get maintenance done on your vehicle. A lot of people just want to jump in their car and just continue to drive it really hard without doing the actual maintenance. And that's pretty much what I do, is convincing people, hey, you need to do more maintenance on your car, and then we can drive it harder. And that's me. I fell into that trap too. The reason I can talk about this is because I did the same thing. I was working 10 to 12 hours a day training people and working at a nightclub and training really hard. And I just, over time, I ended up, crashing and burning. And, it wasn't until I realized that, just because I didn't work out that day doesn't mean it was a day off. If I'm working a 12-hour day and I'm staying up till 10 and 11 o'clock at night watching YouTube videos. So I would encourage you to back off a little bit and focus more on self-care and coming off caffeine and energy drinks. That's really hard. I would slowly titrate yourself down with teas and things like that have less caffeine. Going cold turkey is horrible. So I would encourage you to do that and try and get outside and try and do a lot of walking. But getting back to the plant analogy, I think one of the reasons why everyone's the massive energy drinks and CBD oil and nicotine and everything else is that people are they're not in a good place, because we're basically living a lifestyle, living in an environment that our bodies are not adapted to. And people are looking to basically make themselves feel better or medicate themselves with alcohol, CBD oil, energy drinks, coffee. All these things are being bought in epic proportions. And as we become more zoo animalish and more of a zoo human, that we aren't in our normal, what we would call environment that we've evolved with, for the past, how many, whatever you believe, the more we become zooish, the sicker we're going to get, and the more we're going to look for these solutions, whether it's drugs or antidepressants or whatever it is. You're going to see that continue to skyrocket. And you'll look at doctors now. If you look, it's all over Facebook. Doctors are starting to recommend people go outside for depression, anxiety, for high blood pressure. Just getting outside, even showing people pictures of nature, helps with their overall well-being. So what would happen if you actually spent more time in nature? So, Brandy, I would encourage you to, instead of trying to find a new coach or somebody to, yell and motivate you, I would encourage you to take better care of yourself and get more sleep and get more rest. And then as you feel better, start adding in a little bit of intensity. And it doesn't have to be that much at first, but you'll find if you focus on getting healthy, as opposed to basically, trying to outwork or trying to beat yourself into shape, I think you'll find you're in a better place. And I think you'll find that you'll be able to train more effectively, and you'll be able to get more from less. So thanks for the question. And I hope this worked out all right. And I plan on doing more of these. It seemed to be fun. And I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel and like and subscribe, please. I would really appreciate more questions. so that we can, steer this in the direction that you want to do and want to go. And hopefully this helped you. And if it did, please share it. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.